Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
And the weekend is here, Memorial Day weekend. If you're traveling, please be safe and be sure to take us with you. If you listen to us on the radio, that's awesome. We appreciate it. But we also are available in an easily digestible podcast form on Apple, Spotify, our YouTube channel, Sports IQ LS. Go there. Lots of other video content for you there as well. Be sure to subscribe and get our updates on that as well. Great show coming up here. We've got Chapel Fowler joining us from the States in South Carolina. He's the Clemson beat writer. Talk a little Tigers football. You know, this was a 2025 season that really very unusual. Most teams, a 7-6 season would be great. This is awesome. Winning. We went to a bowl game. Not at Clemson. They want 10, 11, dare I say 12 win seasons and runs to the championship kind of thing. So lots to talk about there with Clemson. Also the ACC meetings last week, the 2014 playoff proposal. We'll discuss that with him as well. And then just a bit later, we will talk with another expert here about the NBA. The draft is next month, but this is the weekend for players to decide if you're going to stay in the draft or return to college. That deadline is coming up here in a couple of days. You'll start to see a lot of names in the news making that announcement. So we'll have a conversation in terms of what he saw over these past few weeks as so many young, hopeful professional players got a chance to spend time with the other players and also spend time with the NBA coaches and scouts and working on their game, figure out what they need to do to get to the next level. Speaking of the NBA, Thursday night at the Garden in New York City, the 2026 Knicks joined some pretty rare company. The Knicks beat the Cavs last night 109-93 to take a 2-0 lead in that best-of-7 series. They also became just the 13th team in NBA history to win 9 straight postseason games. If the other 12 teams that have accomplished this feat, 7 of them went on to win the NBA title, including the 2024 Celtics. They won 10 straight during their run to take the title. New York had never won 9 straight playoff games before this season. Their last trip to the NBA Finals was back in 27 years ago, back in 1999, when they became the only 8 seed to reach the finals. And then before losing to the Spurs, that was in the strike-shortened year. They didn't play a full 82 games that season. These Knicks have done it with a tough defense and some outstanding shooting. The Knicks got back to hitting the 3-ball better than they did in game 1 of the series, going 13 for 36 from deep. It's the team effort. Karl Anthony Towns controlling the boards with 13 rebounds. Jalen Brunson played the part of the distributor with 14 assists. Jason Hart shot 5 of 11 from 3 and leading the way with 26 points. Now, keep in mind, it was just 2 short seasons ago that New York won the first 2 of the Eastern Conference semis against Indiana, only to see the Pacers win 4 of the next 5 games and eliminate the Knicks from these playoffs. And in the 93 Eastern Finals against a Bulls team that was going for the three-peat, the Knicks took games 1 and 2 at the Garden, then let the Bulls off the hook at Chicago as the Bulls won the next 4 games to reach the NBA Finals and then beat Phoenix 4-2 for the first of their 2 NBA three-peats. Okay, that was the story on the hardwood Thursday night. What about on the ice in the NHL? Well, the favorite Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday went down at home to the Las Vegas Knights. They grabbed a 1-0 series lead in that Western Finals. The Eastern Finals getting underway Thursday night. Carolina, a perfect 8-0 in the postseason, just like the Oklahoma City Thunder after the first 2 rounds in the NBA, looking to take their winning streak to 9 against Montreal, who needed to win 2 Game 7 road games just to reach this point. The Canes unable to get their win streak to 9 as the Canadiens took Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals 6-2. The Hurricanes were the first team to sweep their first 2 playoff rounds since the NHL went to the best-of-7 series in all 4 rounds in 1987. But that led to a lengthy break of 11 days, the longest rest for any team before starting the next playoff round since at least 1920, while waiting on the Canadiens to battle their way past Tampa and Buffalo. Carolina opened the scoring just 33 seconds in when Seth Jarvis put one into the net, but just 27 seconds later, Montreal answered with the goal from Cole Caulfield. Montreal then reeled off 3 more goals in the first to take command of the game. Eric Robinson also scoring for Carolina. They're in the Eastern Final, by the way, for the 3rd time in 4 years and the 4th time in the current 8-season playoff run. under Rod Brindamore. But the Hurricanes are now 1-13 in those games, including sweeps against Boston in 2019 and Florida in 2023. And in case you're wondering, Carolina also 0-4 against the Canadiens this season. They've been outscored in those games 21-10. And the Canes have to wonder about Frederick Anderson at some point versus Montreal. In 3 games this season, he has played against the Canadiens. Anderson has a save percentage of just .789 and a goals against of over 4. He has also not shown well in his career in the conference finals. His record in 14 conference finals games now stands at 4-10. Ouch. Let's talk a little college football right now. Joining us once again, great to have him on the show as always, Chapel Fowler. He's a Clemson beat reporter and does a lot of other things for the state down there in South Carolina. Chapel, how's the weekend going for you so far? We're just getting started.
I'm ready for it, man. Yeah, I got a cousin's grad party on Sunday, and the weather hopefully is going to hold up. So yeah, enjoying the turn from spring to summer here in South Carolina. It's a good time of year. It's a little hot, getting adjusted to that, but no complaints. It's a pretty outside my window, and then hopefully it will stay that way for a few months now. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Well, listen, let's get to Clemson football first. Coming off a season that was wow, it's been a while since the locals have had something like this happen. What's the vibe of the Tiger football program coming out of the spring now and try to get back into there's been such a great run of excellence for Coach Swinney and the Tigers. This has got to be a real gut punch they're trying to come back from in 2025.
They have lost the benefit of the doubt, and I think that's both deserved, but it can be a really good motivational point for them. Even something as simple as preseason top 25 rankings. Like, I do not expect them to be ranked in the preseason top 25 this year. I don't think that's an outlandish statement. That's been like a shoe-in for them. And even to the point where some of these years when they've finished, they've lost 2, 3, 4 games, finished barely in the postseason final top 25. They've been ranked like number 4, number 6. They're just one of those teams that, given their track record from 15 to 20, which was one of like the best 6-year runs in college football history, winning percentage and productivity and all this stuff, they kind of just earned those slots like they were a shoe-in in a way to a lot of these other blue bloods were, like a Georgia or Ohio State, where we'll put them in the top 10 because it's Clemson, because it's Ohio State. Right. That last year really fell on its face, like in grand fashion, that idea. So I think because of that, people are off them a little bit. I don't know, like their over under Vegas win total right now off the top of my head, but it might be something like 6.5 or 7.5. That's drastically low compared to recent years. They're not getting picked to win the ACC. They won't be picked to win the ACC. They were a almost unanimous favorite to win the ACC last year, and they've been picked to win that conference probably like 10 of the last 11 years, and they've won it like 8 of the last 11, which makes sense why they're getting picked for that. But all that stuff is kind of out the window right now. And I think it's a lot of guys who are either transfers that are coming in that want to win, that are hungry, that haven't really done it at the Power 5 level before and excited for that opportunity. Or it's a bunch of guys that have stuck around from last year's team that really have a bad taste in their mouth, that got booed off their home field like 3 times, lost 4 games at home, went 7-6, lost that ugly Pinstripe Bowl, and are really eager to get back to it and have a better season than last year. What that looks like, I'm not sure. But I know there's a lot of motivation and a lot of guys that have really taken it on the chin and that are at least very much like sitting with that 7-6 record for months and months and months. And if you're Clemson, hopefully, I guess you're assuming that kind of builds and allows for a turnaround here, because there's definitely people are down on them. There's no shortage of bulletin board material right now if they need that. Yeah,
no, that's a good point, and you're right. I mean, anybody associated with the program, be it the players, the coaches, the staffers, the students who care about this, didn't come to Clemson to get 7 wins. Clemson, you come there to win 10, 11 games and get a shot at a national title. It's been the way it's been for the past decade and plus. Cade Klubnik is now gone. What's the story at quarterback? Who replaces him?
Christopher Vizina is Cade's. He was Cade's primary backup for 3 years. He started just 1 game across those 3 years, but really what was being groomed and built up is, hey, when Cade leaves, this is going to be our next in-house guy. There's a lot of questions about him, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we really just haven't seen a lot of him. He started 1 game. He played against SMU. He had a pretty productive day, 300-ish passing yards, 2 touchdowns. They lost that game by like 11. A lot of his production came when they were trailing, and SMU was one of the nation's worst passing defenses last year. So there's kind of some context to what on paper was a really good day and was, it wasn't like he came out there and showed he couldn't compete against a power conference team. But really, that's the only thing we've seen of him. We've seen him in spot duty across the years when they're up, however, 14, 20 points in the fourth quarter against this team or that team. And then he hasn't really flashed that much. Obviously, he was a really highly regarded recruit, and he stuck around Clemson when he probably could have transferred elsewhere and played sooner. So there's definitely like a mutual loyalty and respect there that I think they both see as like an important culture point. And he's very much waited his turn. Like I can respect the patience 100%. So he's going to get first crack at it. I think all things point to him starting against LSU in week 1. But they have a true freshman named Tate Reynolds, who's a combo football, baseball player, will probably play baseball at Clemson at some point. And I don't know, maybe he'll play baseball professionally down the line. But he's a really like athletic, thick, like 6'2" guy who can really sling it. And they're building him up, and some of the returns on him from spring practice have been interesting to the point where I think I'd imagine he'll play a good bit this year. I don't know how many games he'll start, but I think he'll definitely get mixed in, and they'll kind of dip his toes in the water and see if he could get to the point. Kind of like with Cade Klubnik, like you mentioned, his first year, they dipped his toes in the water. They're saying, okay, is this guy ready? Is this guy ready? Finally, he takes over late for DJ Uiagalelei. Maybe that happens this year with Reynolds. I'm not sure. But it'll be Christopher Vezina to start. And probably for the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, I'd say it's probably going to be his show to run.
Okay. You pronounce DJ's last name right away. We give you points for that because I'd stopped trying that because I just botched it. It sounded so silly. So Clemson football, we know, again, like you said, a lot of questions there. I want to spend a little bit of time. I know you mentioned, as we were talking before the show, that you at the ACC meetings right now. And we've been talking now for the past several days that the expansion talk was kind of sort of dead for a moment until the ACC said, wait a minute, we're for that. And all of a sudden now it's a conversation again. Clearly the motivation is that they get more teams in the playoff if it's 24 teams than if it's 12.
Exactly. Access. ESPN wants more games to broadcast. Conferences want more games to get their teams into to build up their conferences. Teams and coaches want more games to get into because then their jobs are safer, they make more money, their programs are better, all this stuff. I understand it. 24 feels like a lot to me. I think 16 is like kind of digestible. I think 12's fun. Like I think more than 4 was definitely the move. I think 4, a lot of people were left kind of wanting more and wondering, oh man, like if only this team could get in. That's a really high threshold, like 4 out of 138 or whatever it was. That's a tough percentage. 12 with some tweaks I think is okay. 16, you could kind of keep the same like framework and bracket that you have right now, and just add a few more like opening play-in games almost. But 24 is what basically everybody except for the SEC right now has said that's what we want, and I'd imagine eventually that's where it ends up. Just because there's so much consensus around it, from the Big 12, from the ACC, from the Big 10. The specifics of that and auto qualifiers, I'm not sure, but they're all preaching that, and it's different than what college football's had before. And I don't think it's a perfect comparison, but the NFL does have a similar framework in terms of like the percentage of teams that are getting into the playoffs, and that does make the regular season compelling in a lot of ways down the stretch because you've got these automatic division titles that were still in play. Like for the Carolina Panthers, who I follow, they finished 8-9 and they won their division. So like I was very tuned in to a week 18 like Saints Falcons game that I would have no reason to care about in another context. But stuff like that I understand. And the idea of like teams that are 10-2, 9-3, that like 2 or 3 losses doesn't doom a team, and they can still get to the playoff that way and show. I mean, shoot, Ohio State a few years ago with 2 losses and lost to Michigan in their last game or whatever, how many losses they had, and they win the whole thing. Like I think that's indicative. Miami making a run as a 10 seed last year. Like there are teams that might not have the best regular season that are still very much postseason risers. You see that in the NBA playoffs too. So I get all of that. I think it will be an adjustment, like with the calendar and everything. It'll be a big adjustment, getting all that fixed and taking away conference title games and making it all fit by the second Monday of January, having the season end. But but that looks like where we're headed. So I'm anticipating some different playoff in 2027, probably 24 teams, because that's what everybody's kind of just decided they want.
Yeah. Is there any, I know you're at the ACC meetings and not the Big Ten meetings, but, we don't have 16 teams now because the Big Ten held out and basically said, if we don't get 24, then we will go with 12. And the SEC said, to the Big Ten, if you won't agree to go 16, we'll stay at 12. And so that's why we're at 12 for 2026. Is there any feeling that the Big Ten would give in and do 16s? It feels like right now they're kind of two schools. Either you go 16 and you keep the conference championship games, or go 24 and you lose the conference championship games, and that extra revenue makes up the difference of that. Is that fair to say kind of where we are at the moment?
Yeah, sorry, no, you cut off there. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah. It seems like it's kind of the SEC is basically right now the one holdout that has a different point of view. And I'm sure there's probably some caveat, and maybe this does come down to like a number of automatic qualifiers. I'm thinking back to when Jim Phillips talked last week after ACC spring meetings ended. He didn't really have a firm stand. Now, he was very firm. We won a 2014 playoff, but he was not very firm on AQs, automatic qualifiers, as he called them in shorthand. He was like, I could see a world with those, without those. And maybe the fix to get this thing through is having like a certain number of automatic qualifiers per conference, but at the same time, that was unequally weighted. As you remember, there was like the 4-4-2-2 model or whatever it was, where the Big Ten and SEC were going to get 4 automatic qualifiers, and the ACC hated that idea, shot it down. And that's another one of the reasons why that whole thing last year fell apart, like you mentioned. So maybe there's some setup where they work it out to where every conference gets 2 automatic qualifiers, or every conference champion at the end of the year based on regular season standings, or the top 2 in the standings get in that way. And maybe that kind of appeases whatever the SEC wants. Because I mean, they're a powerful institution. Like you could roll your eyes and say, oh, that's just one conference. Like, who cares what they think? But I mean, they hold a lot of weight. Then again, they've lost, or they haven't won 3 straight titles. That's the Big Ten right now. Big Ten is the conference of football champions at the moment. So maybe their voice matters more than the SEC's. But I can tell you that both of those voices matter more nationally and have more weight nationally than the ACC does, which the ACC is aware of, maybe doesn't love, but that's kind of where they are. So they pick their battles and decide what they want, and then kind of see how it all shakes out from there with the 2 power broker conferences above them. So whatever those 2 really want at the end of the day, and whatever they can agree on, is probably what we're going to end up seeing.
Yeah, and I feel like too, it's ACC realizes this is a battle for survival right now, because if this thing goes on too long, you've already had the SEC winning a bunch of national championships. Now, as you mentioned, the Big Ten, 3 in a row, including, every time I got to pause and say it, Indiana. I mean, just because it's just, I grew up in Indiana, 2 wins, woohoo, wins basketball start, and they're the national champs. But the point is, now you have another conference that is establishing national dominance on top of the ACC, on top of the SEC. And then now the ACC is like, well, gee, we're falling even farther behind. It feels like the ACC says, listen, we got to do something. Basketball, we had a better year. We lost all those coaches and things have gone down. We're back on the upswing now. We need to do something looking to the future, to the next decade, to make sure that we still have a seat at the table.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, and on a school by school basis, even whether it's Clemson or anybody else. I think a lot of these schools and leagues are thinking, you know what, this is a crazy time right now, but at some point in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll probably get more toward this like super league model that's been floated, where, I mean, college football at this point is so different and so much more profitable, and all these millions of dollars, than all the other college sports. So the thought is almost to just not make football like a separate entity, but kind of they do their own thing. Like, football is governed by a different structure than NCAA, basketball, baseball, all this stuff. And you have some mix of 40, 50, 60-ish teams, and that's probably going to be your power conference teams. And they're in this NFL-esque league where, again, roughly, I don't know, 25, 30% of them make the playoffs, and 2 losses don't ruin your life, and 3 losses don't ruin your life. And they kind of just run it that way, like on the side. Still part of college sports, but a little bit like separate. So I think a lot of the ACC's thought, Clemson's thought, all these schools is kind of, let's just roll with the flow right now, but let's keep ourselves in position to get a bid to whatever this thing at the end of the day is, because that's going to be the new most valuable, hottest ticket item. And if you're in an expanded playoff where you're making more postseasons and you're staying competitive, winning 10 whatever games, this is kind of not like a treading water moment, but I think a lot of schools are just willing to, hey, tell us what the rules are. We're going to do our best to succeed and thrive under those rules. And hopefully, whenever this thing shakes out for its next new huge iteration and sea change, we can get a seat at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about basketball too. Again, it's a little better season there. For Clemson. Good things moving forward for the entire conference. It appears. It has been a very interesting time. Tell me this: do you feel it's going to wind up being at the end of the day 16 teams in football? Is that kind of where you feel we're headed? And I will say this too. Who would have thought that it would have been like an ESPN versus Fox? ESPN having deals with two of the conferences and Fox with the other two. And so we saw some comments from Fox as well, wanting to be a part of the mix.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I say that, but shoot, it's like May, and they need to decide on this for next year by like December. So
right,
maybe it gets kicked down the road like another year or something. The consensus from basically everybody but the SEC right now seems to be 24, but maybe 16 is like a stopgap or a ramp up to that point. I do imagine whatever the next format is, it'll be more teams than 12. I'll say that.
Sure.
How many, I'm not sure. But I think at the end of the day, even if people roll their eyes at it, like if there's a 24-team playoff, people are going to watch all those games, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's going to watch every game. We're going to roll our eyes, but we're going to tune in. Come on, like we're all going to tune in. Now, the quality of football might be more like a mid-level bowl game or a crappy week 3 overmatched team beats up on undermatched team stuff in the first round. So maybe there's some of that. It's not like every game's going to be amazing, but I think people are going to watch it still. So we moan and groan, but once we get to the games, it's all gravy. So at this point, that's kind of where I'm at. And this in the off season is always like this. I understand it. There's so many changes that need to happen in the sport. And this is the time to kind of sit back and reflect and talk big picture. But I think a lot of fans are probably just like, hey, get me to week 1. Like, let me go watch my team play. I don't care what's going on outside of, the walls of this stadium. Let's just go get on the field. So I think when that moment comes, everybody will enjoy it. And maybe the middle of the season will allow people to kind of, get off their high horses and really come together and decide on a format and just push it through and say, hey, this is what we're going for.
Yeah, totally agree. But you're right. Come December, we're not going to go, wait a minute, that's 12 versus 21. I'm not watching that.
Yeah, exactly.
We will watch. No question. Chapel, always great to talk to you, man. Having a great weekend. Enjoy time with the party. Hopefully the weather holds up, and we look forward to having you on the show again soon.
Good stuff. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate you having me.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Chapel Fowler joining us once again. He's the Clemson beat writer for the state. Also, again, giving us some ACC insights in the meetings last week as the conversation is there. To what number do we expand is right back for the 2026 version. All right. It's a Sports IQ with Larry Smith. We've got more coming up after this.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here. Again, we say thanks to Chapel coming through. He's the guy. I didn't tease him this time, but he looks like Rob Lowe's clone. I don't want to tease him this time because I want to come back on the show. Be comfortable. But no, good guy, and does a nice job reporting on the Clemson program in the ACC. Little NFL news. The Bears reiterated on Thursday that they plan to leave Chicago. Stop saying Chicago's an option. It's not, as they continue to look at building a stadium either in suburban Illinois, suburban Chicago, on the Illinois side, or suburban Chicago on the Indiana side in Hammond, Indiana. They had a statement. The Chicago Bears have exhausted every opportunity to stay in Chicago, which was our initial goal. There is not a viable site in the city. As a result, the only sites under consideration are in Arlington Heights and Hammond, end quote. The statement, which appears again to close the door on the team staying in the city of Chicago proper, comes after the team president, Kevin Warren, said last month at the NFL's annual league meeting in Arizona that the Bears were hoping to choose a new site for an enclosed stadium in Illinois or Indiana late this spring or early summer. Remember, their date to break ground initially was like early last fall. They're way beyond that. And at this point, I'm not sure they're going to make this fall. But listen, hope springs eternal, right? In the spring. Meanwhile, that's the story in Chicago. And we've discussed that. We'll keep following that. It's kind of a crazy situation. Some incredibly sad news on Thursday from the world of NASCAR. Racing icon Kyle Busch, the two-time Cup Series champion who won more races across the sport's 3 national series than any driver in history, died at the age of 41. The Busch family, Richard Childress Racing and NASCAR issuing a joint statement saying that Busch died after being hospitalized earlier in the day as a result of a severe illness, just 3 days before he was to compete at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. No cause of death was given. But producer Tony, you spent a lot of time in your career, CNN Sports and Fox Sports, and over the years with NASCAR. And I know that you got to know the Busch family over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I spent about 10 years covering NASCAR at its peak, in that late 90s into the 2000s era. And, Kyle Busch was a good guy. And the thing that is going to be hard for everybody involved with NASCAR is that they're a family. They're so different than other sports. If you're a basketball player and somebody on the Knicks, you may see them a couple times a year, especially if you're from the West. If you're in the East, you may see them 3 or 4 times. Same with football, same with hockey. Baseball, you might see teams a little more if they play in your division. But these people in the NASCAR world is a family. They travel as a group to all of these racing sites. They're together every weekend. Their kids grow up. Their families know of each other. They're all competitors, yes, but they all know each other, and most of them are friends with each other. So that's going to be the hard part to deal with this when you take somebody out like this at such a young age, 41, just way too early to be gone. It doesn't affect just his family. It doesn't affect just Richard Childress Racing. It is going to affect the entire NASCAR garage, and just wanted to pass my best to the Busch family, to Richard Childress Racing. Just a sad day, and rest in peace, Rowdy. You did good while you were here.
Yeah, well said. Just shocking news. We began the day, I remember seeing that headline right after we did our show and saying, oh, we need to make sure tomorrow we mention that Kyle Busch is not going to run the Coca-Cola 600. And literally hours later, this news came out. And so we obviously respect their privacy, and like I said, prayers out to the Busch family and the entire NASCAR family. As you said, they're a very close-knit group, and our prayers out to them. More to come after this.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Sports IQ continues right now. As we promised earlier, we'll talk a little NBA as hard to believe the draft is now just about a month away. And joining us now, he's a scout for No Ceilings. Steven Gillaspie is here on the show. Steven, good to see you. Hopefully you're having a good start to your weekend.
Yeah, Larry, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Always a pleasure to talk NBA draft with people. And yeah, good start to my week. I hope everything is good on your end.
Yeah, it sure is. Excited about watching these NBA conference finals. Of course, NHL Stanley Cup ongoing. But let's start with this NBA draft coming up as we're beginning to see some players on the fringe make their decisions if they're going to stay in the draft or return to school. But we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start first at the very top right now. I've been someone I'm not a big fan of having all freshmen go in the top 10 or the entire lottery, but we could have a lottery possibly that could be all freshmen or very heavily freshmen starting at the top right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you look at even at the start of this draft cycle, Larry, we had Darren Peterson and AJ Dybantsa were the consensus guys. You can throw Cam Boozer in there. Some people were really high, still very much so are. Those were like the big three headliners coming into the cycle. And obviously we knew that all three of those guys were going to be freshmen, probably going to be one and done. But we had so many guards, so many even forwards kind of work their way up. Caleb Wilson coming out of UNC. Some people were really big on him coming in, but, North Carolina hasn't really done the best over the past couple of seasons. And I don't even think the highest end optimist of Caleb Wilson could have expected, the level of passing field that he showcased this year, the touch on his mid-range, the rebounding, the defense was sort of intermittent, if you will. But, he showcased to be one of the best freshmen in the country as well. And might even be, the second or third player selected in this draft based on everything that we at No Ceilings are hearing from, folks in the NBA. And then you have the home run glut of guards that are in this class too with, Darius Akov, Michael Brown, Keaton Wagler, Kingston Flemings, all in the freshman ranks just kind of work their way up, and then you even have some guys kind of come out of the blue a little bit, such as Abuko Okori out of Stanford, another freshman guard that just kind of suffering from the depth of guards and, one and done prospects within this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it seem like is it Dybantsa right now the number one to Washington? Is that what you feel where we are coming out of some of these camps here in May?
I think so. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, Washington is probably doing their entire due diligence and evaluating how Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, probably even Caleb Wilson might fit onto their roster. But if you look at AJ Dybantsa, he just fits so much of like that prototypical sort of perimeter oriented wing forward sort of player that the NBA is so fond of, about 6'10" right now. The young man probably not even done growing, already has a sort of frame that can absorb physicality. And he just sort of fits what Dawkins and that DC staff have done over the past couple of draft classes. You look at players such as Will Riley, Bilal Coulibaly, these kind of long, lanky players that they're sort of coveting over in Washington. AJ seems to check the prototypical forward boxes plus the sort of versatility that Washington has shown to value.
Yeah, Will Riley had a fantastic last 6 weeks of the season. I mean, boy, what a just a sponge he's been. The former Canadian played at Illinois and now hitting into his second season. And he, reclassified. So actually, I believe he should be just a college freshman right now, if I'm not mistaken. It appears that the top four are pretty much set. Do you see anybody else coming in and sneaking their way into the top four other than you mentioned again, Dybantsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson?
I think it's going to be pretty much set in stone as much as it can be this early on. I mean, they're still doing workouts and intel gathering. I think the one player right now that is gaining a lot of momentum to maybe break into that tier of prospect would be Michael Brown Jr., the freshman guard out of Louisville. He kind of had a segmented season to where early on in the year he was showing, playmaking flashes. He was attacking the basket, things of that nature. He ended up hurting his back, missed a little bit of time. And then when he came back, we started seeing more of that 3-point marksmanship that he showed in FIBA play over the summertime. So we got to see a little bit of everything from Michael, but it wasn't really, consistent or streamlined all into one, showcase as it was for guys like Keaton Wagler, players like that. But now he's getting in front of people. He's doing interviews. He's, measuring well. He had one of the longest, if not the longest, wingspans in Chicago for that guard position. And he just plays like a star guard. He has that good size, good length, very creative and imaginative. He's got that bend and lean on top of the sort of handle that's probably the best within this class. And he showcased some unique and, dynamic athleticism on the defensive end. I think back to this one play that he did earlier in the year where he's on defense, the offense is trying to capitalize in transition. He jumps up in midair, kind of one hand grabs Spider-Man throws in midair off of the steal in one fluid motion, steals the ball and advances it up the court to a teammate for a transition play. Just the sort of thing that you're not going to find outside of the top four other than with Michael Brown himself.
Yeah. Another name that we're seeing rising really throughout, really since they won the national title is Dybantsa, the 7'3" center of Michigan, who, again, his measurables were greater than I think what scouts realized. And we've seen him go from, I think in March, he was a fringe end of the first round to possibly now, not just a lottery pick, but potentially in the top 10.
And what's making it interesting too, I've been kind of workshopping this idea with the rest of the folks over at No Ceilings, but if you look at what the NBA playoffs are showing us right now, is that Victor Wembanyama is here to, kind of collect pelts and put them on his wall. and in the Western Conference, you really have to look at your team's roster construct and what's a better way to kind of help alleviate the impact of a Victor Wembanyama than a 7'3" big man who's shown that he can contribute in a winning manner, who has a 9'9" standing reach. So yeah, I'm looking at Amara and the passing ability that he has. He's shown that he can defend in space better than I think that he gets credit for. If you want to squint and look, you might be able to talk yourself into some shooting touch, but collectively, all the big man things that NBA bigs have to do in the league today to include playmaking, he has it. So I'm looking at teams in the Western Conference right now that are picking, according to consensus, a lot of these teams such as Sacramento and Dallas, they're supposed to be, drafting guards based on consensus best player available. But I'm looking at the Victor Wembanyama extravaganza right now and thinking, like, does a Western Conference team such as Dallas, maybe, do they look to try to draft a Dybantsa even if he's available to them at 9,
Yeah. Well, because you can't teach size and you can't teach wingspan, right? And so you're right. Correct. He has all those intangibles that you can see why he's gotten some attention now suddenly. You mentioned a couple of times Keaton Wagler, the freshman guard out of Illinois. It came out of nowhere to be a consensus All-American. I can't recall, and I've been following this since the Magic Johnson days when I was a kid, right? A long time ago, a player like that came on to the scene. And in one season, I've compared his story to Steph Curry. I've said before that, there was a player who was overlooked by coaches, overlooked by scouts, ignored by coaches, ends up being a leading scorer for his team and takes him to the NCAA tournament, puts up a 20-point game in a stadium intended for football, and then lost to a blue blood in the end. You could say that was Keaton Wagler. You could also say that was Steph Curry. Curry, though, it took him 2 years to get there. Wagler took him 1. I've never seen that happen by anybody. There's some question about his athleticism, but it just feels like that his feel for the game and his basketball IQ is going to keep him in the top 10, and someone's going to take him there before the 10th pick.
I love that kind of parallel that you just illustrated there, Larry, between him and Steph Curry. That's such a fun, kind of way to look at his ascension. And you're right. There was a number of grassroots scouting outlets that just did not have him in their collective top 150s. And it's interesting because he was the Gatorade Player of the Year out of the state of Kansas. And I think that you look at him, Abuka Okori, another one, Alan Graves out of Santa Clara was Louisiana Gatorade Player of the Year. There might be something to at least scouting those 50, and seeing how good they might be. But back to Keaton Wagler, his ascension is so interesting, coming from the state of Kansas, going on to a team that has a lot of upperclassmen, including Colin Boswell, the lead guard there. And he's no slouch of a player in of himself. Keaton steps in and showcases that he can, rebound and shoot right off the rip. Boswell goes out due to injury. And now all of a sudden, Wagler has to lead this team of, former professional athletes in some cases with the Ivisic brothers, right? And you're looking at how he's able to organize that team. And sure, he doesn't have the sort of athleticism to that of, like, let's say a Michael Brown Jr. or Darius A. Cup Jr. But what he does have is that the floor just kind of moves around him. He just plays at his own pace. He can get to the basket. He passes people open. He can operate out of the pick and roll. So there's a little bit of initiator, lead guard archetype to him. But even if he's not the lead guard, even if you are worried about the athleticism, I feel like there's a little bit more safety aspect with him too, to where he's going to at least be a good complementary piece at the absolute bare minimum. So he does provide a safe floor as a floor spacer and maybe even a second side creator, even if things don't go as pie in the sky as what some people have for him.
It's an intriguing story to watch, and it's a fun story to keep track of. No question about that. I want to ask you about kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Is there a player who has used these last few weeks to play himself into the draft, maybe was planning to test the waters, go back to college, but now it appears is going to stay in the draft and looks to maybe be a second round pick?
Ooh, that's such a good one. One that's getting a lot of buzz is Matt Abel, the guard out of NC State. And this is such an interesting one too, because that team did have names, but did not perform up to the standard that a lot of people were anticipating. But Abel is showing that he's not like he doesn't have like the prototypical size of that of an off guard, but he is a dynamic scorer, good athlete, good shooter, shows good tools on the defensive end as well. And again, another one of these freshmen, this class is just riddled with freshman talent who stepped in and performed over their heads collectively. And I think Matt Abel is one of these guys to where if you look at the playoffs, you got to have guards, you got to have floor spacing, you got to have athleticism, strength, and defensive potential. He gives you a lot of those things. And he even showcased those in an ecosystem that I would argue is probably not the most, conducive for everything that he brings to the table.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. Anyways, we've seen too in these NBA playoffs, you need depth. Look at what Minnesota losing two guards for a stretch, and they had guards off the bench come up and not only propelled them to a win against Denver, but also to win a couple of games against San Antonio in that series as well. Steven, man, I have so many more questions, but I know we're out of time. You've got to run, and we've got to get moving too. Our sponsors are knocking at the door. But listen, love having you on. Hopefully, we can. We won't bug you here for a couple of weeks. We get closer to draft time. We'll come knocking again to get your thoughts before we actually go to the draft.
Larry, this was a blast. Anytime that y'all need me, just let me know, and I will make myself available. I appreciate you all having me on.
All right. We appreciate it. Have a safe weekend, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. You do the same.
All right. Thanks so much. Steven Gillaspie joining us once again. He's a scout for No Ceilings and talking about giving some great insight right now on some teams that we know they're going to be there at the top, but also some guys to watch once we get past the first few 3 or 4 picks right now. This is going to be fun. Listen, again, I'm a guy I'm not big on the one and dones, but this is the year I make the exception. There are some fantastic talent, and we will see what they can do in the next level. Okay, the Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues after this.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices on airline tickets are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts with over 500 different airlines, plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. The only way to learn more is make a free call. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next trip. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next trip.
Let's get back to the story in the ice right now. Producer Tony joining us. And you were saying before the show, we've been talking throughout your commercial breaks, you're concerned right now for the Carolina Hurricanes of a Canadiens team that, look, let's face it, they've not been able to solve yet this entire year, regular season or now, one game into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's one thing if they'd have met one time and you say, okay, Montreal won. They've played 3 times in the regular season, once in the playoffs. Montreal has scored over 20 goals in those games. They're averaging 5 goals a game. That's going to beat any team in the league. And if you're Carolina, it starts seeping into your psyche. How do we beat these guys? How do we beat these guys? And especially if you're goalie Frederik Andersen, who has had some lapses in past and playoff times with other teams and with Carolina. And now you've got a team that is beating you regularly. I saw where Slavin, the defenseman for Carolina, said that this was all on him. He played a bad game, and the stats bear that out. It's probably the worst game he has played his entire career as far as being on the ice. Every time that Montreal scored, I think he was on the ice for 4 of the 6 goals or 5 of the 6 goals. And he came out and said he played poorly, but they need a win in the worst way. They just need to get together as a team, win a game against Montreal and say, okay, that's broken. We beat them. I don't care that they've won 4 to 5, but we beat them. We've proven we can beat them. We can move on from this point. But they've got to this is not a series until Carolina gets that win.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Meanwhile, we were talking about the Thursday night games, New York Knicks. We went in saying, listen, Oklahoma City is still the favorites. The Western Finals, still many believe the de facto NBA Finals, but the Knicks are going to make this a battle. Up 2-0 right now. I'd be stunned if the Cavs win both games at home over the weekend. I think they're going to go back with a chance to take it in Game 5.
Yeah, I think this series lasts maybe 5 games at the tops. Yeah. New York is playing at a high level. They are getting production from all of their stars. Look, Josh Hart stepped up. The Cavs made a point of leaving. They were going to have to leave somebody open. They decided that person was going to be Josh Hart. They were going to try to shut down Bridges. They were going to try to help James Harden with Jalen Brunson, and they did that. You didn't see Harden on Brunson hardly at all last night. You saw Max Strus on him. You saw other people on him, but it wasn't Harden. Harden was going to cover other people. And you saw the Knicks still be able to exploit that, but they have found that if you put Harden on probably the worst offensive option, then he is not quite such a liability. But the Knicks still get the job done because Hart stepped up. 26 points, leading the team. Brunson had a poor shooting first half, picked it up a little bit in the second, but was still distributing the ball. 14 assists. That's great output from a point guard in any game, especially a playoff game. And Karl Anthony Towns was quiet, double-double, doing his job underneath and getting things done. I just think this Knicks team looks like a team of destiny to me. They're playing well, they're playing at a high level, and they're getting production from any number of people out there at any given time. And they look like a cohesive unit. And you know what, Larry? They look a little rested. They looked tired last year. They don't look tired this year.
Yeah. And what a difference, too. We talked about Coach Tibbs and what a grinder he was. And we expressed concern early in the playoffs. Would their stars have enough gas? And they didn't. This year, you're right. They do. Certainly the team to beat in the East. And they're halfway toward that run to a trip to the NBA Finals. Okay, our moment of awe is up next. Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, SportsIQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQ TRADE-IN. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ TRADE-IN for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter. Okay, time now for a moment of awe, and I love this story. You know, it's not uncommon for siblings to find a shared love for a sport and each one gravitate toward that. But the Schweigert family takes that to the extreme. Imagine having 6 daughters, 6 sisters, all playing softball for the same high school, one after the other, a string that would last for 2 decades. LEX 18 in Lexington, Kentucky, doing the story about Dunbar High School. There will be a Schweigert on every softball team that began back in 2012, and a run that won't end until 2031. In fact, the oldest once finished her game and was then rushed to the hospital to hold her baby sister, who was born just hours earlier while she was at her game. And that baby sister she held will be the one who will finish this incredible run next decade. She's on the JV team right now. So to the Schweigert sisters and their parents, wow, you have earned our moment of awe. And thanks to our guests for stopping by. Chapel Fowler, always a pleasure. Patrick, is also good to have you on here, and great to see all of you joining us here each week. Make this a great weekend. Please be safe, and we will talk to you next week. We have a special holiday show on Monday. Another fresh show comes up on Tuesday. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.